Done it official.
But it got everybody's attention. Well, we definitely had something different last week. If y'all were here, thank y'all for being here and being on time. If you missed last week, you missed the treat, but you will have a chance to, as it were, have a replay of that when we go out and visit that native animal sanctuary that Sean and Yvette and Colin own. They own it. It's on their property. It's about 12 miles from here, so it's not even a trip, right? It's not even a trip. Now, a white buffalo and the craziest looking horses that you have ever seen in your life, and they're very bizarre looking horses, and they don't even know what they are. So you'll have a chance to do that on November 15th. So please mark your calendars to see a native animal sanctuary, honest to goodness native animal sanctuary, right here in the Shoals, 12 miles from campus. But a very different speaker tonight, and we're very pleased and honored to have Mr. Mac Malden with us here tonight. Most of you know him as our Director of Admissions husband, if you know him at all, Ms. Kim Malden. Most of you know Kim, and so they are married. And
To each other.
to each other, yeah. And we applaud that wise choice. And just down the street from us, as a matter of fact, Mac is president of a local bank, Bank Independent, which is not just a local bank. It has branches all over North Alabama, which he runs with his brothers, and it's a closely held family corporation. He's also on the board of directors of the Birmingham branch of the Federal Reserve. And in case you're wondering what the Federal Reserve is, just take out a piece of paper from your wallet, a piece of money, and you'll look and you'll see that it's issued by the Federal Reserve. It's guaranteed by the Federal Reserve. That's why that piece of paper is different than the piece of paper that you wrote somebody's digits on. It actually has value. It's guaranteed by the Federal Reserve. Not being totally adept or expert at finance, I'm going to leave it at that. But Mac is extremely involved in the community, and that's one of the reasons why I asked him to speak a couple of years ago, and he's been generous enough with his time. This is his third year to come and speak. Currently chairing a major initiative of the Chamber of Commerce, and has served as president of the Shoals Economic Development Board, what we call CEDA around here, and probably president of the chamber before. Yeah, he's made the rounds. So you can't find someone who's been more involved, not just in the economic life of the community, but in the community as a whole. And y'all didn't come to hear me talk, so how about a warm round of applause for Mac Malden?
Thank you. And I guess you can hear me, obviously. This is a great room. Do y'all know what used to be here? Know what was in this building? I think it was an auditorium. It was a swimming pool. I mean, it wouldn't hold much water with the way it's sitting now, but it was not. That was. It wasn't an auditorium. It was holding water. So what we're going to do, we're going to talk until the first person falls asleep. And if it's you, I'm going to call on you, and you can do the rest of the program from my notes, which I have. But I didn't have to. But let's talk about the Federal Reserve Bank, what it does, and how it works. Federal Reserve is the bank that was founded in 1913 by Woodrow Wilson. It replaced the Bank of the United States, which Andrew Jackson eliminated because it was a private bank controlled in the United States. And between the elimination of the Bank of the United States in 1913, there were lots of different economic fluctuations. Any business majors here? History business majors? I'm not going to call on you. There were lots of fluctuations in the economy, and we relied on J.P. Morgan. Ever heard of J.P. Morgan? Very wealthy New York banker, and some other people to bail the United States out. So Woodrow Wilson, being the good Democrat that he is, figured out that it's not good for individuals to really own the country. So he started the Federal Reserve Bank. And the Federal Reserve Bank has two major purposes. The first is to have full employment which nobody knows exactly what full means. Right now, it means somewhere about a 5 to 5.5% unemployment rate is full employment. And to manage inflation. Manage inflation. Right now, inflation is about between 1 and 1.5%. And that's not good enough. 8 or 9% is too much. So they want to keep it between 2 and 3% inflation. So the dual mandate, full employment and manage inflation. The Federal Reserve manages the money supply, which used to be just cash in your pocket. Now it's what's in the banks, which you have on PayPal or Google Pay or whatever, all of that's included. When the Federal Reserve was founded in 1913, what was the primary fastest mode of transportation? It's not a trick question. Yes, sir. You're right. Absolutely. Very good. And where was most of the population in the United States? General. East of the Mississippi. So when the Federal Reserve was founded, they had banknotes, which Dr. Burton talked about. And on the banknotes, they needed the money out in the circulation of the United States. So what they did is they looked at a map of the United States, and I did not bring that map, but you'll notice that everywhere there's a map of the railroad system in the United States, there's a Federal Reserve Bank. So Atlanta at the time, after the Yankees burned it down, was still, in 1913, a major crossroads of the railroad. It went up the north coast, down the south coast, it came west, it went northeast, it went southwest. So it was a major hub, and that's why Atlanta was picked to be the major hub. There's Philadelphia, there's New York, there's Boston, there's Richmond, Chicago, St. Louis, Dallas, Denver, San Francisco, Cincinnati. I think that's about it. That's say Philadelphia did that. And you'll notice what's interesting about it? There's only 3 really west of the Mississippi. That'd be Dallas, which is a big town at the time, but before the oil boom. There's Denver, which is really the last railroad before you cross the Rocky Mountains, and then there's San Francisco. At the time that the Federal Reserve was founded, Los Angeles was like nothing. I mean, it was like smaller than Florence is today, or the Shoals area. So that's currently the branches of the Federal Reserve, Atlanta to San Francisco. And in those banks, there's the money, the cash. The Treasury actually prints the cash, and the Federal Reserve Bank holds the cash. So it's printed somewhere else. It's on deposit at the Federal Reserve. So in the basement of all those buildings, there's lots of money. You're not asleep yet. I know you're not asleep. And it's not me. You stayed up all night and studied, right? Gotcha. All right. So that's the Federal Reserve. And what I do on the Federal Reserve Board, we're having a meeting Friday. They ask us questions about what's happening in the economy. And so some of the questions are, how's the housing market? Anybody bought a house recently? Oh, very good. Where'd you buy? Where'd you buy?
In Collinwood.
Collinwood. Okay.
Cypress Inn area.
Did you get it appraised before you bought it?
Not yet. We're still in closing, but we're in the process of buying.
All right. So you get it appraised. Was it hard to find a house in Collinwood?
Well, in our budget, yeah.
All right. Very good. In your budget.
But there are a lot of houses.
A lot of houses for sale, but not
Yes.
necessarily in your budget.
Yes, sir.
It's good to stay within your budget. Well, anyway, you try to buy a house, and you gotta find a house. The person has to want to sell the house, and you have to want to buy a house, and then you gotta agree on the price. And sometimes people don't have the money to buy a house, and that's what's been happening in the past several years. The rules about financing homes have changed so much that you have to have more and more money to put down than you used to. You used to be able to borrow 100% on your house, and now it's 80, 85% of the purchase price, or the appraisal, whichever's less. So if you buy a $100,000 house, you have to come up with $20,000. Well, if you buy a $90,000, if the house only priced for $90,000, you've got to come up with like $25,000, not to depression. So the housing market in our market, a lot of you from the Shoals area, Anybody from Decatur, Huntsville, Athens? Very good. Collinwood, Tennessee. Anybody from Tennessee? Mississippi. Bless your heart. And then you got any Georgia, Florida type folks? Where are you? Georgia, where in Georgia?
Bainbridge,
Bainbridge. That's kind of far away. Well,
It's about 7 hours.
all right. Anybody from Western Mississippi? Anybody from, where are you from?
Iowa.
Oh, well, that's way up there too. We're freezing now. You're not. All right. So different areas of the country have different economic situations. So in our market, our economy, our houses didn't really devalue during the recession. You were probably when it started about 12 years old. But this you have lived through and are living through the worst recession that the world has ever known. We talk about the Great Depression. We have been through, this is worse than that. The difference is the social programs that the United States has in place to support. There are no soup kitchens, there are no soup lines like there were in the Great Depression. People didn't starve to death like the Great Depression. But we lost more money in about a month in the United States than the world had during the Depression. And we had a forum here the week or two after the stock market crashed in the, is it the Range Hall? No, the building looks like a castle. What's it called? Weston. And talked about it. And the stock market has recovered, but the economy has not recovered. So they asked us questions about what's happening in the economy. And I told them, I said, the housing prices are stable in our market. And then we'll have somebody who's from like Silicaga on the board, and they'll say, our housing prices haven't recovered. We have somebody from Atlanta, and I go to the Atlanta Fed meeting, their housing prices are booming, but they're still less than they were before the recession. And then you compare Alabama to Tennessee and Georgia and Florida, and Alabama still hadn't recovered from the recession, where Georgia has really recovered well, and Florida has really recovered. Do we have some Florida people here? Did we say we have Florida people? Oh, where in Florida?
Well, I was in Florida for many years, but I lived in Panama City.
Okay. All right. Surfer boy, right? Beach.
Well,
Beach.
I tried. It didn't work very well.
That's okay. Well, anyway, so the economy is recovering. And some other things to ask about. What are you hearing in the market? What are you hearing in what's happening in your area? And there are a couple of things that are happening that I put on there. One is the Ebola outbreak. It can be very scary, especially in academic setting like you're in. This virus, this respiratory virus that children are getting is very scary. ISIS is a scary thing for people your age, and you're, talking about, do we need to send ground troops? I have a 16-year-old and a 20-year-old, and that really concerns me a lot about it. And so those are the type of things that we're worried about. And why is that important? It's important because of confidence. If there is a outbreak, I mean, what's the first thing that comes on at night at 5:30 news? You don't watch 5:30 news because you're getting ready to come here. But the Ebola outbreak. What's the second story? The respiratory virus and the children in states that have had that. And the third story is about ISIS about to take over Baghdad, or one of those, not Baghdad, I guess it would be Baghdad. What's the capital of Iraq? Baghdad. Yeah. How do you take that? And so, and what ISIS stands for is counter to everything that we think we're for. So that erodes consumer confidence. And if consumers aren't confident, then they don't go to Walmart and they don't go anywhere. They'll buy a house, they'll buy things. And you don't think that's a big deal if you decide, okay, I'm not going to go buy the new TV. Well, there are 318 million people in the United States, so if 1 of every 10 said, I'm not going to buy a new TV, well, TV is about $500. So that's a huge amount of money in the economy, millions of dollars in the economy if you don't buy something. So when the recession happened when you were 10 years old, 11 years old, you're 18, right? So you're 11 or 12. We had just finished adding on our house out there. which is 2 blocks away. I drove, but it's 2 blocks. It's raining. Kim works in the campus. She hadn't driven one day. I want you to know, she's never driven the campus, except maybe just one day. It was Saturday, and I think I walked with her. What was I saying about? Oh yes, the recession happened, and I had on the house, and I built a bonus room over my garage, and had a bedroom in it. And the recession came, and I said, well, I'll just not furnish that bedroom. I don't really need that bedroom. And the children have a bedroom. It was just a guest room. Okay, and so 8 years later, I have not yet finished furnishing that bedroom. So if you take that times 1 million people not doing stuff, it really adds up and affects their economy. And that's what consumer confidence is all about. Going into the Christmas season, the consumer confidence has the difference in the economy. You know, between Thanksgiving and Christmas Day, all retailers make all the money they're going to make for the year in those 4 to 5 weeks a year. And so they go from, that's why they call it Black Friday, because they turn a profit in the week of Thanksgiving. So consumer confidence is really important. Other things they talk to us about is what's happening with healthcare. Healthcare is a major problem. Our healthcare costs have gone up about 10% in the past year. We provide anybody working Make Independent? You should. We have night jobs, 4 to 8, all day Saturday, very good job. Mostly tellers. What was I going to tell you about there? What was that topic? You know, that's the worst part.
Benefits, healthcare benefits.
Healthcare benefits have gone up. We pay about $600 a month for each person at the bank who's on our healthcare system. And that has gone up about $60 a month from 2014. So that's a major, we have over 500 people on healthcare program. You know, it's about $3 million so much so far this year that we've paid in healthcare. And that's a major concern, a big problem for us. Nothing that we can't get through or fix, but that's part of employing people is your healthcare costs. And so when you go to the hospital, it costs money. When you go to the doctor, it costs money, and we want you to be well. But it's a big, healthcare is a major issue in the United States. And if you hear about Obamacare, that can be good or bad. We do not have Obamacare. We provide Blue Cross Blue Shield. And it's a very good program, but it's expensive. And I think just like education is going to change, healthcare is going to change as well. So you're at the cusp. You lived through the greatest recession in the history of the world. Your healthcare is going to change by the time you get there. Your education system is going to be different for your children than it is for you today. I would imagine when you have children and they're in college, which is 18 years away, that how they receive their teaching is going to be substantially different than what you receive, and you're substantially different than what I receive. And it may have changed 2 or 3 times by the time your children get to college. However, I may add that education is one of the slowest to change organizations in the history of the world. And speaking of change, what's happening at UNA? This change. All right, who's the president of the university? John Thornell, right? Is that right? Dr. Thornell, right? So what happened yesterday about the president? They announced 4 candidates that are up for replacement of Dr. Thornell, right? Y'all know that?
I don't think they get that email.
They don't get that email. Okay. Well, it's actually. Yeah, you should. You should. Well, then I'll fuss at somebody else if they don't get that email. All right. So what happened today? They did. Very good. And did anybody click on the link to go look at the resumes of the people? All right. So this president is probably going to be here sometime next year. Probably first quarter of next year, probably. And you're a freshman, so this person, this lady or man, is going to have an impact on your education. Now, that's important to you. And you need to research and understand the differences in these candidates. And I would encourage you to go to the receptions for them and speak to them and call, shake their hand and look at them. As my dad used to say, give them the eyeball treatment. You have a Kenneth Kitts. I have the three resumes. Kenneth Kitts is at he's provost and vice chancellor of academic affairs at University of North Carolina, Pembroke. Do you know why that's significant? We beat him with our third string quarterback this past weekend. Is that right? And our fourth, who actually was playing baseball the week before. Do you know what a provost does? Not our provost, but any provost. Okay. The provost kind of runs the academic side of the university. Is that about right? Then you have a vice president of financial affairs that runs the finances.
He spoke.
They did? Good. And then what's the third? There you have the president, provost, vice president of financial affairs, and student affairs, which is important to y'all. There's another one. Advancement. Okay. Advancement would be getting money out of me for university. That's getting money out of me. So this is Dr. Kenneth Kitts, and he has his PhD from the University of South Carolina, his master's from Appalachian State University, and he has his BA from Appalachian State. So I would encourage you to read through his resume and see what it is you think they see that in this person. All right? Kenneth Kitts. It's in the email that you got, the link. Then you have Randall Hanna. And Randall Hanna is the chancellor of Florida College System. The Florida College System has 850,000 students. UNA has 7,500. 8,000. How many? 6840. So why would somebody have 850,000 students who want to come to UNA? I think it's fabulous to get somebody like that. I don't know why he would come. Let's see what he got. He's been married for 32 years. Has 2 children. Which is good. He likes to read. Likes to travel. That's what he said. I'm just telling you what he said. What's his education? He has a doctorate from the University of Pennsylvania Graduate School of Education, which is Penn, University of Pennsylvania, which is very prestigious. He has a Juris Doctorate from Eagle, Florida State University. I'm an Auburn graduate. Get it? And he is a master's from the Goizueta Business School at Emory University. You know who Goizueta was? He's chairman of Coke, chairman and CEO of Coke for a number of years, and changed Coke whole business model into a dominant soft drink provider. And a bachelor's degree from the University of Florida, 1981 graduate. It's interesting to see somebody like that. And then we have, I think, for the first time in the history of the world, a female candidate, which I think is fabulous. She is the chancellor of the University of South Carolina at Aiken. And then universities change what a chancellor and a president is. And sometimes the chancellor is over the president, sometimes the president's over the chancellor. But I don't know how this works. I know that the University of, at the South Carolina system, you have the guy who was president of Alabama, Chancellor of Alabama, went to South Carolina, and he's head of all universities. So she is like Dr. Kale or Dr. Thornell here, University of South Carolina. She has her doctorate from the University of Georgia, Master of Arts from Georgia, and a Bachelor of Arts from the University of Alabama. So why is that? She has also been to Harvard Graduate School of Education, which is pretty impressive. Look through these resumes and see what you think. And the interviews are next week. The interviews are next week, so I encourage you to participate because this is probably one of the most important things that will happen to you while you're at the University of North Alabama. And probably one of the most important things that happened to our community in the next 20 years because of the university. And why is that important? Well, you've got to finish your education, and one of these three people, hopefully one of these three people, will be the person that will lead the university and get you out. And I think, being a graduate of Auburn, that the university has enhanced the level of my education every year because their ACT scores go up every year as they get the new class. And I just took the ACT score once, and my children have taken it like 10 times a piece. And so they enhanced my education, and I bet one of these presidents will enhance the value of education after you graduate, and enhance the reputation of the university as you are here and after you graduate. So I encourage you to be involved. I think one of the things that I'll tell you about my college career. I went to Auburn. I was a member of fraternity, and I was very involved, and was very involved in my fraternity and involved in the university. And why is that important? Well, if you're living in the world, you're going to be involved. And there's no greater space to learn how to be involved and to effectively communicate with people verbally, with your eyes, not with your cell phone. Don't do this. You need to communicate with your people, your friends and neighbors, and develop a relationship with them. Because when you graduate, you're going to have to be involved in the communities that you're in. There's no greater way to learn to be involved. I was involved I was chapter president. I was the director of Spirit at Auburn, which was in charge of pep rallies and getting shakers and stuff all to the games. It sounds really silly. I was in charge of Albee. Had to select Albee, had to select the cheerleaders. And it sounds, for a 54-year-old guy who talks about picking cheerleaders, pretty silly. But what it taught me is how to interact with other people on the committee and understand what everybody wanted and what they were after for an Albee and for a cheerleader. It also gave me the responsibility to know, the Shakers had to be in Baton Rouge before the game started. And I had to get them there and I had to figure out a way to do it, to get them there. I had to tell them myself, I only needed 10,000 Shakers. And they were paper when I was in school. They were all plastic now. Also, being involved helps you with your relationship and will help you get your first job. Being involved. If you just have a resume of academics and no sports and no other activities, you need to be involved. You don't have to be a leader of each organization you're in, but you need to show involvement. You need to be on the committee. You need to have done an event or something that helps the university or your cause. And all of that, if anybody's on scholarship, you know that involvement is very important in the high school. My 16-year-old hadn't figured that out yet, but he plays baseball and he claims he doesn't have time. Now, I have a business degree from Auburn in finance. And so I took all the business school classes as a freshman. I had History 101 and all that sort of stuff. And I went through and took every class that I was supposed to. Not one more, not one less. And I graduated in a year and a half, 4 years and a half. So I stayed 1 quarter extra. If I were doing it again, I would take more history, because the only way you can ensure you don't repeat history is to know the history that you have. All great generals are great historians, especially historical battles from the Greeks and the Turks, the Greeks and the Romans, and all the other people. All those wars, Patton and Rommel, all those generals were very big historians. And they always said that one way not to repeat what they did 1,000 years ago is to understand what they did, so I wouldn't do it again. So history is one item. I would take more classical literature. I would read more classics. And I did not read classics in college because it was not required. But now I wish I had. And now I don't have the time to do it like I did. You will have no more time in your life for yourself than you do right now. You will never have more time in your life than you have right now. So take advantage of that time and fill it up. Don't sleep till noon, even if your class is at 1. Get up and read or do something. I would also have taken more, writing courses. If you're in business or you're going to be in business, professional memo writing. I would have taken memo writing. I would take keyboarding. We call it typing. I would have taken more keyboard. I did not take the typing class, and that's all I do today. That's all you do today, whether you do it on your screen or your keyboard or your computer. I would have taken more keyboarding classes. I didn't realize in 1982 that we were going to have computers that were smarter than all of us were in 1982 and one little device like this. When I was in school, we had to go to a building where the computer was about the size of this room. We had little terminals set up here, and all we did was see spot run, run Jane run. I mean, that's basically all it did. I would have taken more of that. And let's see what else I got here. All my notes. Get involved, presence, more plastics, education. And then if you have a job, be involved in that, in your job, and take every day seriously. Now, this is not something I've talked about before, but I will tell you the consequences of it. And I hope you have heard this already, and I'm repeating. Social media is dangerous to your future. Don't ever put anything out there that you don't want on the front page of the paper, or that you would be embarrassed if it's on the front page of the paper. I don't email anything that is derogatory to anyone or any group of people at all, because it can be hacked and it can be followed, and it never goes away. And again, I'm going to give you 2 examples of that. One, we had a guy who was your age, works at the bank, and he was taking Twitter. Does Twitter have little videos? Can you do little videos on Twitter? No? Yeah, you can. He was tweeting a person next door and making fun of him. And not next door, but in the people next to him. And we got it, we had to let him go. We had to let him go with cause. He was mean, he was bullying. But we were able to, he erased it from his Twitter account, but all you have to do is look up their name, and all those Twitters come right up under Google. They're all there. And if they're not there, for just cause, you can find them and get it. The actresses and actors that put nude pictures of themselves on iCloud, somebody hacked an iCloud and showed them. That's stupid to put something like that out there. Now, don't take nude pictures of yourself. Sure as hell don't put them on iCloud. iCloud, you remember iCloud, it really means it's like out there for people to see. Also on Facebook, if you make editorial comments that are one-sided or derogatory, they're out there forever. So when you go to get a job, people are going to look at your Facebook and read what you have on your Facebook. And if there are things out there that are not especially nice that you say, it will affect your ability to get a job. So, all right, let's take, for example, the situation in Tuscaloosa where a young lady tweeted something that was not very respectful. Well, not respectful at all. She claimed it was a mistake. Remember right after Rush happened? She tweeted something that was ugly. She's like out of the university. out of her sorority and probably gonna have to move out of state. And she claims she didn't mean it. I have to believe she didn't mean it. She didn't say it. But it's out there. She erased it. She tweeted it to her ex-boyfriend, who forwarded it out to everybody else. So, you know, it's stupid of her to do that. Obvious that her ex-boyfriend is not her friend anymore. Well, wasn't at the time, and sure as hell not now. But I would encourage you to do that. Do not put anything on social media that you wouldn't be embarrassed, your mother wouldn't be embarrassed, your grandmother wouldn't be embarrassed to see on the front page of the paper. That was one of the things we asked the guy that we had let go. What would your mother think? He said, oh, please don't tell my mother about it. Well, my mother is 86. She's not going to understand it. But just don't put anything out there. Social media can be good, but right now it's pretty corrupted. It can be very corrupted. So I have a Facebook account. I don't have Twitter. I don't have Snapchat. Did y'all say about Snapchat? I'm lecturing the choir here, but Snapchat is only supposed to be good for like 2 to 10 seconds or something. But that digital is out there. And somebody hacked into Snapchat and stole 200,000 pictures off of Snapchat and is going to release them. So the idea of Snapchat is so that I can't go look at my children's Snapchat and see what they did or what they received. But that digital memory is there somewhere within Snapchat. And somebody's hacked into Snapchat and is going to send that out. Now, don't break in a cold sweat yet. Just don't do it again. All right? We have some things at the bank. We have about $1.2 billion in size. We have 525 people. We do business primarily in North Alabama, from Huntsville all the way to here. But we have another company that does business in 40 states. And we have people in California and Oklahoma, Pennsylvania that work for us. And Michigan. We have somebody in Michigan. But we have some things that are primarily our focus. And I was going to share those 5 items with you real quick before we break up. One is people. If you don't have the right people, you have people smarter than you working for you, you'll never make it. You got to have the right people. You got to be trained. They have to understand their job. You got to understand the job they're going to do. Got to hold them accountable for the jobs that they do. But without the right people, you can't compete. Number 2 is service. Service for bank independence, number 1 priority for every person in the bank. We offer the same thing that every other bank or credit union offers. The only difference is our people and the service we provide. That's why we're open till 8 o'clock at night, 6 days a week. That's why we answer the phone when it rings. Novelty, I know that's a novelty, doesn't go to voicemail. But we provide exceptional customer service, whether it's on your iPad, your iPhone, your electronic device, your computer, or if you want to just come on in the branch, we provide exceptional service. We think that our service should be convenient. That's why we're open till 8, and we provide every means of you to get accounting and your information from emails and text to your mobile device, everything convenient for you. Not everybody wants to look up their balances on their iPhone. So we have various ways. You can do it on the phone. You can call us. You can do our Independent Express, where it's the computer talking to you. We believe in convenience. If you don't have the financial strength, the capital, the earnings, you can't survive. So you have to have strength. And strength is capital, and you got to make money. We believe in making money. We believe in treating our people right, and providing convenience for our customers. So we also have a saying in the bank, do the right things. Just do the right thing. You know, if we mess up, just fix it. Don't make it a big deal for the customer. If we mess up, just fix it. Just do the right thing. Honor your commitments. You said you're going to do something, get it done. So we think that's strength, financial strength, and standing behind your word. And the fifth item is community. Community is the communities that we're in. We're in 19 communities in 7 counties across North Alabama. So community, if our communities don't grow, the bank can't grow. And the bank was founded when the bank that was in Leeton in 1946 closed its doors. And my grandfather, along with other farmers in Leeton and Colbert County, got together and started the Bank of Leeton to provide financial service to the farmers in East Colbert County. And so we've always been about community. And that's why I'm involved in the chamber, in the Federal Reserve Board, CETA. I was chairman of the Mental Health Board for a number of years, and a whole bunch of other stuff. I'm currently the chairman of Athens State University over in Athens. And so it's all about community, growing what's happening in the communities that we serve, making things happen. So I think that will pretty much cover what I was going to say. I'm going to love questions, and we'll take questions. I'm going to take 5 questions. Whether there are 5 questions or not, we'll have 5 questions.
Question? Ask them if you got them.
Yes, sir.
Why is Alabama's housing market slower to grow?
We have not had the recovery in jobs that other states have had. Atlanta is a huge economic hub. Miami is a huge economic hub, and New Orleans is a oil and gas hub. Atlanta's a big economic engine because of its international community and airport. South Florida is a flight to quality from South America. A lot of money is coming from South America. We are not really known as very progressive on a lot of social issues that are, which is just not, I'm not a commentary good or bad, but we're just not perceived as a forward-thinking state, and that prevents outside people from coming in. And you've got to have people, you've got to have your communities growing before your housing market can grow. That's a good question. Thank you. I have one down here. Yes, ma'am.
I know a lot of us are on kind of limited budgets because we're in college right now, but what would you suggest we do right now that could set us up for financial success later on?
Very good. Great question. I'll try to remember this and tell my daughter. She asked, what can you do? You're on a limited budget, you're in college, and what can you do now to make financial future? I would say the first thing you do is when you get a job, save 10% of your salary the first day you get a paycheck. Save 10% of your salary. Then when you get a raise, save 10% of that raise. If you're making $1,000, save $100. Do not touch that money. Keep it. If your company has a 401k and they match it or they don't match it, add that to your savings. Because if you start saving on your first paycheck and you keep the discipline of saving 10% of your salary, you'll be able to retire early because the magic of compounding makes a difference. So if you save money on the first day that you start, don't save it and spend it on a house. Save it. And then when it gets up to a suitable amount of money, invest it in an investment plan that makes sense for you. Now, if you're 20 years old, your investment strategy should be far more aggressive than you would be if you're 55. So you need to think about that. Save 10% of every dollar you make and put it away. I didn't do that, but I think it would be very bright for you to do that. Very good question. Thank you. Any other questions? That's 2. Yes, ma'am.
The job you have now, was that the job that you've always wanted to do? Or did you have like other things that you would rather be doing?
Yes, no, yes. No, yes, no, yes. Well, let me tell you, my father was chairman and CEO of the bank his entire adult life. And so we had a responsibility to come home after college and do the family thing. My brothers did that. I went and worked in Atlanta for 5 years before I came home. And I loved that experience. I can't imagine not being here doing what I'm doing. We have divided up the responsibilities. I'm the youngest of 3 brothers. I've got my oldest brother is the CEO of the bank, and he runs kind of the backroom stuff. And then my middle brother runs the credit and IT because he's a IT nerd, and he understands all that. And then I'm in charge of growing the bank and everything outside the bank. So the branches outside of the bank. So it is a great work out of how we do things. If I were doing something else, I would probably live on the beach or something. I haven't gotten there yet. But my wife, anybody know my wife, she doesn't sit still. She doesn't sit still. She doesn't sleep. She sleeps like 5 hours, 6 hours a night, and I need 8 at least. So we're not going to ever slow down, I'm afraid, until she decides we're going to slow down. But this morning I was at a breakfast meeting with Robert Adderholt, calls all day, customers. I'm having you, and then have a dinner meeting after this. So it just goes on and on. But I love what I do, and I hope that I'm doing a good job for not just my family, but for everybody in the community and works with me. So thank you for that question. All right, is that 3?
2 more.
2 more. I see. It's a good place. Yes, ma'am. Is it difficult to work with your brothers? Well, I was in a meeting with my brothers yesterday, and we meet all Monday afternoons twice a month. And it's great to work with your brothers, but you tend to be more honest with your brothers than you are with everybody else. And so we were in the meeting, and we were talking, and I said something to one of my people that work at the bank, and he said, I just felt like a brother. And he says, sometimes it feels good, and sometimes it doesn't feel too good. But yes, there are challenges to that. Part of the ownership structure has to do with that because we're all kind of equal. And the other part is you feel like you need to tell your brother more than you need to tell a coworker. And so it is challenging, but it's exceedingly rewarding when it works well. And I think it's working well right now. They're not a problem. It's not a problem. It's just like, do you want to work with your wife all day long? Do you want to work with your brother? Fortunately, I'm always gone. We don't see each other all week. We do have meetings on Mondays, and we have lunch with my mother on Fridays. So that's a tradition we started about 20 years ago, having lunch with my parents. My father died in 2010, and so we now have lunch with my mother when we're in town. So, thank you.
Last question.
This guy, you're not leaving.
I wanted to ask.
Oh,
you didn't
it'll
mention-
count. It'll count.
It'll count. When you talked about service, you didn't mention it this year, but you said that y'all had a policy and maybe y'all changed it, that the person who first talks to the customer with a problem, they have to make sure that themselves personally that it's solved.
That's right. When you know a problem, you own the problem. It is your responsibility to get that problem resolved, even if you can't. If I hand it off to you and you hand it off to her, it's still my problem to solve, and we do that. But also have a policy to call everybody by their name. There's no industry in the world that knows more about their customers than banking. When you come in to cash the check, I know your name because it's got to be on there. our goal is to do it 100% of the time. If you don't do it 80% of the time, you get a visit. You get a visit. Now, I'm not the one that visits, but usually I don't do anything bad. I let other people visit. Any other questions? Hey, I wanted to congratulate you for being a part of this group. This is a big deal. There's 100 of you in this group. You're a very selective group. I give you, it is a great way to make a big university small. And I would encourage you to take advantage of that. Call me if you have any questions. Let me know how I know you. If you see me at Walmart, that you all come up and tell me how you spoke to my honors class one night, what year you're in, because I will not remember every face, but I may remember some.
Thank you. Y'all have a great week. Thank you. And I know as you walk home tonight, you may not want to wear it. Oh, it's a different color. And you get that one in your office.
We're curious. Are you? Yeah. I like very strong coffee from my experience. So Keurig is the way to go. It's obvious.
I need to turn the video off before I say what I'm about to say.
Y'all take care.
I had a meeting with your wife.